here. Uh, I know it's a very wet morning, but as head of the Department of English, I take the opportunity of welcoming Dr. Rumpa, Principal of Maheshtala College, and I also welcome our Principal, Dr. Maheshtala, and our faculty, Dr. Sharmila Paul and Mr. Ritik Babu, to this first invited lecture, which has been organized by the Department of English, Rani Girls College. I would like to ask our principal, Dr. Maheshtala, to felicitate our resource person.
I'll also take some photos.
Thank you, Dr. Naz, and thank you, Dr. Maheshtala. And before we start the session, I would like our principal to say a few words just to encourage our students.
A very good morning and welcome to our very special guest, Dr. Rumpa, Principal Maheshtala College. Today is a special day for us and for Maheshtala College because we started a new journey together. We have signed a MOU of collaboration of academic and allied activities today, and I'm very happy that the first program under this collaboration is being organized by our Department of English through their departmental seminar for the students of English Honors and English General. The topic of today's seminar, Introducing John Keats to Autumn, is something about which I know nothing. So I will not go into the details of the topic because I am from a discipline which is far, far away from literature, and my knowledge of English literature is also not that rich to brief you all about John Keats. I will better leave that to Dr. Das, but I would express my heartfelt gratitude to Dr. Das for agreeing to collaborate with our college and to come and deliver this lecture in spite of her busy schedule. Trust me, I know how difficult the life of a principal is to find out a day and whole session for students is really, really touching. Thank you. And I also hope that our college and Maheshtala College will have a very fruitful collaboration, and we will do a lot of work together, and you will be seeing ma'am in different programs, and we will also visit her college. So, to a new beginning, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Maheshtala. I take great pleasure and I feel honored to be able to introduce our resource person today, Dr. Das. Dr. Rumpa Das, an alumnus of the Department of English, Jadavpur University, is principal of Maheshtala College, Kolkata. She has taught English for over 2 decades as associate professor in English. She was Deputy Secretary Academy, West Bengal Board of Secondary Education, on deputation for a period of 2 years. She has published widely in India and abroad and spoken in more than 30 international, national, and state level seminars and conferences. She has also delivered talks on women empowerment, media and gender, motivation and communication in several workshops and conferences. Her areas of interest include gender, media, and culture studies. Her publications include two books and four edited volumes, all with ISBN, with more than 50 published articles in books and journals. She is a poet, creative writer, and reviewer. Her poems, short stories, and reviews have been published in many books and journals in India and abroad. And I'm very sure that her lecture today will be very, very enriching for our students. And I'm thankful to Dr. Das for having chosen a topic which I'm supposed to cover with semester one minor and major students. I think it will be a great help, not just to them, to me also, to listen to you. Thank you, and over to you.
Yeah, if you want to. No, ma'am, we can give it. We can put it there.
So I will take the lead. Okay. Let's be good and pay attention to what ma'am is saying. Okay?
I'm sure they are very good as it is.
Some of them will hang on. And they tend to be at times.
And they're only semester one, okay, because it's part of the syllabus there. So we have to.
So after she finishes, then yes.
Again, back only
Do
will be.
you want some tea or coffee here?
Not right.
Okay, just tell them.
Yes, sure. Okay, thank you so much, sir. So, a very good morning to dear principal ma'am, my beloved colleagues, and my very dear students. I'm absolutely thrilled at this invitation, though I must confess, a bit skeptical considering this morning's downpour, at least in my area. I wasn't very sure. I guess if this tripod can be moved a bit so I'll be able to see these girls. Are you okay? No, I was very advanced. Yeah.
Is it okay now?
Yes, this is. If it is okay here.
Yeah.
That's, we are just recording your. Oh, I'm not really very sure. This is quite intimidating. Okay, so when I was actually preparing this lecture, I was not even actually thinking about an MOU. What I was thinking of was just my students of Rani Birla Girls College, about whom I have heard, but this is the first time I have had the opportunity of coming here. Your former principal, ma'am, Dr. Shunetla Sinha, was also known to me, is also known to me rather. And I also know Shunetla ma'am because we have met before in a refresher course together. I have known Shormila ma'am for quite a while because we work for a particular organization which concerns English academic studies. And just this morning I met another of your very bright teachers. It is indeed a very proud privilege and a matter of pleasure for me to come see so many of you here this morning braving the inclement weather. And this poem which I will be talking about today, To Autumn, uh, trust me, this is actually done with you in mind. And one very famous quote by my daughter, I remembered while I was coming, that you keep talking about different interpretations of poems. How are you very sure that this was what the poet intended? So, what I will be discussing today will be obviously my interpretation. And I welcome you to this beautiful polyphonic world of literature, which actually can be interpreted in such or so many delicious possible ways. So, without further ado, I will be starting off this lecture of mine to autumn. Even though there are many critics who would like to believe that To Autumn happens to be an ode, Keats himself did not use the word poet, which was, and he used just to autumn as the title. And my initial title was Keats's Swan Song, which meant the last composition, which indeed this poem is. A very brief biography. I'm sure you know more than this, but just like by way of introduction, he was born to poor parents, and even before his 15th birthday, he had lost both of them. His initial training was to be an assistant for a doctor, that is an apothecary. I will be leaving this entire thing for you, so you need not take pictures, okay? And in his initial years, even while he was training to be an apothecary, apothecary is, what we in common parlance speak of as compounder. In a chemist's shop, you will find that there are people who are quite knowledgeable. So you go to, you are not feeling well, you have a splitting headache, or you are feeling feverish, and you go and say, "Kaku, amar jor lagse." So the person who, even without having a degree, offers you medicine has some kind of a knowledge, which previously was known as apothecary. Now we call them compounders, precisely because in earlier times, like when we were quite, yeah, I don't know whether Shushmita remembers, we were, given certain medicines which were compounded then and there. Like, okay, so the doctor used to say, oh, Jordan, it's it. And a latte, and the compounder used to come and prepare certain medicines which were not tablets. They were like very suspicious looking liquids, and we were given like glass vials with all those doses marked with these papers, and horrid memories of those medications. So Keats was like training to be precisely that, and no wonder that Keats left that training midway, and he always wanted to be a poet, and he was deeply influenced by the poems of Edmund Spenser, and his early compositions were all like, pastiches, or deeply impacted by the Spenserian style. It was only after he started his writing his own kind of poetry that people stood up and recognized him. But the reviews which were published about Keats's poetry in different newspapers, Blackwood's Review, quarterly magazines, etc., they were sometimes very indifferent and sometimes even scathing, virulent, lashed out at him. Why do you want to write poetry? Why don't you do something else? You shouldn't write poetry. These are horrid pieces of verses, etc. But even though he felt very sad, depressed, he was a very young man. As you can see, he was born on 31st October 1795 and breathed his last on 23rd February 1821. A very short period. These 2 years, 1818, 1819, this was his annus mirabilis, the magic, miraculous years. In all of our lives, we will be having, periods where we are not doing quite well, but then there will be certain golden periods where whatever you do, you excel at them, and you have extremely nice, happy memories about them. So, 1818, 1819, which incidentally was the years of his composition of most of his notable poems, was just like that. The two women in his life, Isabella Jones and Fanny Brawne, with whom he had very short and very tragic experiences. He died in Rome, aged 25, writing poetry for the last 6 years of his life, which means he started writing poetry, which we are reading now, even 200 years after his life. And his entire poetic oeuvre belongs to only these 6 years. His fame, his renown, why Keats matters so much to us, that he and his poems find place in the syllabi of English honors or English general, English major, English minor, all over the globe. Everything he is known for was after his death. He didn't know about what it is to taste fame and fortune during his lifetime. I will be glossing over a few of these slides, but just by way of mentioning, his poetry explores the possibilities of English language, rhythm, rhyme, allusion, and intertextuality. You only possibly have two autumn in the syllabus, isn't it? Yes. But when you will be moving on to your post-graduation, or even now, if you have interest, you could look at his other poems. But the chief elements which I would request you to note in his poems are the way he has used English rhythm, English rhyme, allusion, and intertextuality. Intertextuality is when you are reading one text but you are reminded of something else. It so happens that we are, for instance, watching a movie, right? And then we find the hero or the heroine just, singing or lisping some other tune, some other song from possibly a very old or classical movie, and you are asked to connect these two together. For instance, if a present day movie with present day hero heroines, you find them singing Kishore Kumar songs or songs from a very old Hindi movie which has been sort of a classic. You, or like us as students of literature, should be immediately made to think about these two texts. It is not just the present love story which we are going to think, or we are being asked to think. T.S. Eliot, for instance, his poems are so polyphonic. Polyphonic means a number, poly means a number, multiple, and phono or phonos actually means sound. So polyphonic is when you have echoes of a number of texts together. T.S. Eliot was a master, and in fact, I remember some of us in our postgraduate days did not like T.S. Eliot because reading T.S. Eliot meant sitting with this entire lot of notes because we don't know. A very innocent looking line actually might be a translation from some Latin text, or a name here and there might actually mean some be a reference to some Italian heroine or some Broadway musical, right? So intertextuality does those things, and Keats's poetry has echoes of Spencer, yes, but also has echoes of many other things which we will be looking at. His poetry is characterized by polished quality, complexity, and an adherence to classical literature. So, one favorite question which was set for English honor students in our years was, consider Keats as a Hellenic poet. Here, Hellenic actually is alludes to the classicism. How much classical, or how many allusions, or what was Keats's indebtedness to classical literature, right? So, besides contributing a large body of poetry, Keats has also left behind a large number of letters. This is something which I will have a special request for you. If possible, sneak out, not from your college, but well, on any holiday from home, go to National Library, which has his collection of letters, even his love letters written to Fanny Braun. You will get to know Keats the person from his letters. Not just Keats the person, but also Keats the poet. And that is why I have included a few, bits and pieces from his letters over here. He comes across a number of important terms. He talks about negative capability. He talks about the chameleon poet, the veil of soul making, and the mansion of many apartments in the course of his letters. In a letter to John Taylor, on 27th February 1818, Keats wrote, and I quote, "If poetry comes not as naturally as the leaves to a tree, it had better not come at all." And we start thinking about what Wordsworth said of poetry as the spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings. He talked about the organicity, human organicity, that's like something which is like effervescent, and here Keats talks about something which is now regarded as eco-criticism, right? And T.S. Eliot, about whom I was just talking, he said his letters are what letters ought to be. The fine things come in unexpectedly, never introduced or shown up, but between trifle and trifle. It is a pity that we don't write letters anymore. And the lifespan of our letters or messages are almost similar or synchronized with the lifespan of our mobile phones. So even if you write like long messages to your friends, which might contain some poetic element or might be brilliant examples of prose, if you are not careful enough, or if you are a techno nerd like me, you lose them when you change your phone. But the art of letter writing we have lost altogether, unfortunately. I just will gloss over this Keats's concept of negative capability in chameleon poet, where negative is not in some pejorative or bad sense of the term. Negative in the sense of to convey the idea that a person's potential can be defined by what he or she does not possess. I will give you an example. Um, just let me read the next one. The ability to contemplate the world without the desire to try and reconcile contradictory aspects or fit into closed systems. I'm sure this also did not ring a bell. I will explain. In one of his letters, written during his stay with a friend in the English countryside, when he had already been diagnosed with tuberculosis, Keats was looking very intently to a bird picking grapes just outside, in the garden. And he said that I was so intently looking at that bird picking grains and had immersed myself in that experience to such an extent that I also started feeling myself like a bird. And as it were, I was also picking grains with it. See, here is negative capability. Negative, why? Because he is negating his identity as a human. We all know that we cannot go outside and pick grains like a bird can. I cannot actually even go out through the possibly any small door or window even for that matter. So you are negating your selfhood and you are enabling your consciousness to feel, as it were, like some other being. For instance, just imagine you forget about your individuality and for one moment you become me. You become me. This happens with us when we are watching a movie or watching a cricket match for that matter. We completely forget the immediate here and now of our circumstance and identify ourselves with those whom we are watching. So, a defeat for our favorite team can actually play havoc. And when we were children, not even children, when we were even very young, we have seen how people even tried to kill themselves, committed suicide when one's favorite team lost in a World Cup match. Very recently in Bangalore, a very famous matinee idol, not very recently, it was like 2-3 years back, Puneet Rajkumar. He died
and four people committed suicide. These four people were not relatives of Punit Rajkumar, no, because they were very rich when Punit Rajkumar left them. Good fortune. These were very poor people who loved their matrimony idols so much that they started thinking about them, they started dressing like them, like him. And his loss meant the end of the world to them. This, in a way, is negative capability, right? And chameleon poet, a poet who has no identity, who is continually filling some other body, which you see is also connected with this, right? Veil of soul making, Keats presents the world not as a veil of tears, a perspective held by so many during his time, but a veil of soul making. He felt that life was a very enriching experience. It was not only, a sea of tears. Nowadays, we tend to feel depressed quite often. I shouldn't be saying the word depressed because it has very serious implications. Very sad. And we feel, why me, God? ऐसा क्या हुआ मैंने क्या कर दिया ऐसा why am I to suffer so much I love this person yes it's true I hate these persons a bit but that does not mean that I will be handed down like such a negative life no but Keats and he's writing this when he is in a lot of pain his parents are not there his favorite brother and sister have already left for the US. His younger brother Tom had died almost in front of him, also due to tuberculosis. He has been diagnosed with tuberculosis, and unlike now, at that point of time, it was called consumption. Consumption means this disease consumed a person. You could actually see a person wither away, and in the Nightingale Ode, you have these lines where youth grows pale and spectre thin and dies. Right? So, for a person who has seen death, for a person who has seen such a lot of tragedy unfold before him, and he knew that even his days were numbered, for him to think of life as a veil of soul making is, in my opinion, a huge feat. And he has also compared human life to a large mansion of many apartments. The first step we call the infant or thoughtless chamber, that is when people were very young, and then as they grow, we no sooner get into the second chamber, which I should call the chamber of maiden thought, that we become so intoxicated, we become intoxicated. We see nothing but the pleasant wonders and think of delaying there forever in life. You don't want to die, you want to linger. And this preoccupation with death is something which you will always find in Keats' poem. In Nightingale Ode only he has written, I was half in love with easeful death. He has always had, for a person who has seen or who has experienced so many deaths and who is only awaiting his own, this is really something great. So, what is the history of the composition of this poem, To Utter? It was not written in England. It was written on after a particular experience on the 19th of September 1890. This was an Italian author which he had seen firsthand. No, sorry, this was in Winchester, I'm so sorry. And he had written, how beautiful the season is now, how fine the air, a temperate sharpness about it, really without joking, chaste weather, diurnal skies. I never liked stubble fields so much as now, aye, better than the chilly green of the spring. We will soon be hearing an echo of this into autumn. He says that they are even better than the autumn skies are even better than the chilly green of the spring. Somehow a stubble field looks warm. Do you know what a stubble is? Stubble? Anybody? An unshaved beard. It's like a stubble. You know, after the harvest has been completed, and you only notice all those, you know, the dried twigs of the harvest left, and it is very identical to the stubble which is there on the face of a man if he doesn't shave, right? With apologies. He says that even the stubble field looks warm. And he says, this struck me so much in my Sunday's walk that I composed upon it. So here we have, in the poem which we are going to read, an English autumn. And what is today's reality? We have a very Indian, sorry, Bong autumn. Bong autumn, which is autumn only on pen and paper, but it's like a full-blown monsoon out there. Right. So this was composed on 19th September and was published in 1820 while he was taking a walk near Winchester, and this is also one of his last poems. A year later, he died in Rome in 1820. It is one of the last poems to be written by Keats. And while reading the poem, we will be looking at it just a sort of brief introduction. Is personified as some typical agricultural workers. And you will also take note that he is, autumn is perceived as a state of stasis, as if something which was moving has stopped momentarily, only getting ready to move in the next moment. Such as you're traveling in a car or a bus and it stops at a traffic signal where you are in motion but resting for that that fraction of a moment. Just keep this in mind, it will come to our when we will be discussing. So in the first stanza, autumn is a friendly conspirator working with the sun to bring fruits to a state of perfect fullness and ripeness. In the second stanza, there are a number of images that of a thresher sitting on a granary floor, that is after the harvest is done. She is thrashing, a person who thrashes. I'm not sure how many of you have seen this happen in any of the villages. Then a reaper asleep in a grain field, and a gleaner crossing a brook, and lastly a cider maker. A cider maker is a person who is engaged in pressing apples to extract the apple juice, which will then go on to make some apple beer, which is called apple cider vinegar. In the final stanza, autumn is seen as a musician, and the music which autumn produces is as pleasant as the music of spring. But here you have a veritable orchestra of insects. Gnats, not just insects, birds and animals too. Gnats, lambs, crickets, robins, swallows. And I will also ask you to note how there is a diurnal progress. It is as if you are progressing through morning, early afternoon, and then to evening as we move through the poem. And there is also a movement from early fruitfulness, variegated, that means a number of different kinds of laborious activities, and then finally not just a decline but a peaceful rest after all the work is done. So when the poem progresses, you have a lot of work to do, and then you find people gradually undertaking those activities, doing those work, resting for a while, and then finally when the poem ends, all the work of the day is done. And there is a sort of a peaceful, slumberous vibe. Structurally, Imagery wise and rhyme scheme wise, this poem is similar to the Great Ode of Spring 1819. Yet Keats chooses not to call the poem an ode. An ode is a poem which is written to some imaginary concepts or some people who are not there, who have already died. So you have ode to a nightingale, you have ode on a Grecian urn, you have ode to melancholy. And this poem, in spite of having all those qualities of ode, was yet not called an ode, though some critics also choose to call it ode to autumn. This is the first stanza. And I'll read the poem. Season of mists and mellow fruitfulness. See, this is the poet addressing autumn. Season of mists and mellow fruitfulness. Close bosom friend of the maturing sun, conspiring with him how to load and bless with fruit the vines that round the thatched eaves run. The season is addressed as a season of mist and fruitfulness, of happy abundance. Right? So this is something, there is something very positive, but somehow there is also an air of secrecy, isn't it? By the use of the words mist, close bosom friend of the maturing sun. Even the sun, as if has not yet matured, but autumn is as if has a sort of a very close kinship and alignment with the sun, who has also not come of age. Look at the next word, conspiring. Mist, mystery, then conspiracy. And what is this conspiracy all about? We generally associate conspiracy with something bad, dark, dismal, negative, something which will be obviously counterproductive. However, here the conspiracy is how to load and bless. The word bless has something very positive. When you are talking about the word bless with a Christian poet talking to his Christian readers, there is an immediate connection of divine felicity. So, even if there is a conspiracy of autumn, that is the season, with the sun, against whom? Against the trees, it will only evolve in something fruitful, something good. This mystery will not unleash evil, right? And this conspiracy is how to bless with fruit the vines that round the thatched eaves run. What are thatched eaves? They are thatched cottages. Remember? He is here not talking about some grand garden. He is talking about something very homely. In fact, all through this poem, you will come across images which are extremely homely, domestic in nature. Nothing grand, nothing fabulous. So the thatched eaves are intertwined with these vines, and to bend with apples the mossed cottage trees. Cottage trees, not even an orchard. These trees which possibly grow naturally, spontaneous, organically, without human intervention. But how are these cottage trees? They are mossed. Nowadays, due to this constant downpour, many of our houses and alleyways have these mosses. Have you ever touched them? Nice. Sometimes we do, accidentally also. They feel like velvet. It's cringy, yes, but that feeling of touch is there. And what Keats is trying to do for all of us here in this first stanza is to picture an image of natural opulence, where fruit trees are bending down with fruits. Sometimes just before the summer properly sets in, you will find mango trees full of mangoes. You can find the very friendly neighborhood papaya trees, sometimes overgrown with fruit. Something which grows naturally without even the aid of a gardener or anything. He is here hinting only at those trees. And filled with all fruit with ripeness to the core. Every fruit should be ripe. Who ensures this? The season in association with the sun. To swell the gourd. And now look at the images. This conspiracy is to impregnate those trees. And here are the images of visible pregnancy. To swell the gourd and plump the hazel shells with a sweet kernel. Kernel is that which is there within. To set budding more, so that more and more blooms, more and more blossoms are there on each and every vine, each and every tree. And still more later flowers for the bees. Go home, sit down, try and recite these words with the exact pauses. And you will find that most of these words are elongated. See, fill all fruit with ripeness to the core. You don't say core, you say core. To swell the gourd and plump the hazel shells with a sweet kernel to set budding more. As if this is a very sweet, a pleasurable kind of an exercise which the poet can imagine. It's like, it's pulling an elastic. You kind of pulling. We don't want our happy moments to finish quickly, do we? When you're having an ice cream, when you're having your favorite piece of pizza, when you're having, doing something which is actually giving you a lot of fun. We linger to them. We tend to elongate those moments. Isn't it? We don't want them to end so rapidly. And he is using just those vowels and consonants. And still more later flowers for the bees. The bees are super busy. Why? Because such a lot of blossoms are there. They have such a lot of work to do. And all this is as if sending a signal to the bees that, hey, you have a lot of work left. And they are thinking, warm days will never cease. We too think about this when during the onslaught of summer. কবে বৃষ্টি আসবে বাবা কি গরম We also think warm days will never cease, and then comes monsoon and we think monsoon days will also never cease. So the bees think warm days will never cease. And now comes a very important sentence. For summer has overbrimmed their clammy cells. Try and pronounce this sentence to yourself and notice how many times your lips touch each other. You will have that sticky feeling. After you have touched honey, after we touch honey, what happens? They feel sticky and we rush to the nearest sink or basin to wash our hands. But what about the bees? They are engaged in this activity. And this is called synesthesia, 2 or 3 sensations coming together. Here are a number of words which are giving you a sensation of touch. Summer has overbrimmed their clammy cells. It is as if you can also what is happening. Clear? So just a quick reading and see if you've got it. Season of mists and mellow fruitfulness, close bosom friend of the maturing sun, conspiring with him how to load and bless with fruit tree the vines that round the thatch eaves run, to bend with apples the mossed cottage trees, and fill all fruit with ripeness to the core, to swell the gourd and pluck the hazel shells, the sweet kernel, to set budding more and still more later flowers for the bees, until they think warm days will never cease, for summer has overbrimmed their clammy cells. Let us move to the second stanza. Here is a direct address to the season. Who hath not seen thee oft amid thy store? The stanza begins with a question. Who is this who? Who is it? No, it is the season. And what store is being talked about? This is a granary. Sometimes whoever seeks abroad, abroad is here no foreign land. Abroad is just outside home. Abroad may find thee, that is you, sitting careless on a granary floor, thy hair soft lifted by a winnowing wind. Winnowing is an agricultural activity. What agricultural activity? The separation of the grain from the husks. In all these pictures, there are 4 pictures here. You will find autumn personified as an agricultural worker. The first one was of a granary worker who is resting after some arduous work, but he or she will be ready possibly the next moment. And there is this soft wind, the winnowing wind, which as if is helping the worker in his or her objective, that is the separation of the grain from the husk. So that one moment of stasis is there. Just that moment of inaction, after action and before some more action. Almost like the bees who think that warm days will never cease, and so their work will go on and on and on. Right? The next image. Or on a half-reaped furrow, sound asleep, drowsed with the fume of poppies, while thy hook spares the next swath and all its twined flowers. I am sure nobody has seen poppy vine. No. Okay. Poppy vines are, very thin climbers which grow on lands which are particularly dug for this purpose, and on a sort of a longitudinal section they appear like waves. The crests are where these poppy trees are planted, and the troughs, that is the last middle part, they are where they keep growing, the climbers grow. Poppy fruit is used for preparation of opium. It is also that fruit which gives us our favorite toast. But the smell of the poppy flowers is very strong. Nowadays, if you take an evening walk, you will find the fragrance of chati. Chati in English is it clear? Okay, so you will find some very strong fragrance from the chati trees, which had also once stirred the imagination of our Kovi Guru Rabindranath. And there is in Shantiniketan a Chhatin Tola. A lot of chatting trees are there. Anyway, so there is a lot of, there are a number of chatting trees also in Kolkata. and particularly during this season, that is our autumn mixed with monsoon, we have very strong fragrance wafting in, particularly during these, when the evening breeze blows. And it has a heady feeling, nesha nesha bhaja. ছাতিমের খুব strong গন্ধ, and people who suffer from breathing problems shouldn't be walking below those trees, or else their suffering might be exacerbated. But here, the poet is picturing a worker who was busy cutting the poppy harvest, and after a long day's work is now taking rest in that furrow. দেখো এখানে see half reap furrow. What is the furrow? The furrow is that U kind of thing. As I said, the entire land is made, it's dug up in such a way that you have a number of U or M or W, whatever. So the worker is as if resting in that furrow, as if the smell of the poppy flowers and the worker's own exhaustion has lulled this worker to sleep. This is also something which we can see on any given day, particularly during late afternoons. If you walk into some construction site, you will find people who are who have been laboring since early morning, and who then rest possibly against a mound of stone chips or sand or something. And the delightful image here is that of the hook. The hook is that what in Bangla we call kashti, with which this harvest is cut. It's like a question mark. Sickle. Spares the next swath and all its twined flowers. All these creepers grow together, so all these are as if tied to one another, entwined. From entwined you get twined, but as if the next batch of entwined flowers have been spared, given a lease of life, because this worker has fallen asleep. He will get up, he or she will get up again and start his work, where obviously these flowers will be cut. The next image is of a gleaner that dost keep steady thy laden head across a brook. A brook is a small stream. This we have all seen in real life or also in real life, where there is a small 2 or 3 pieces of bamboos have been tied together to make a sort of a makeshift bridge, where a worker is crossing, keeping the burden on his or her head, balancing. The word balance becomes very important here, because there is that burden on the head, and you also have to keep watch on your steps as you fall. So that moment of stasis, where you are just between motion and motionlessness, or by a cider press. Cider is what I said, apple juice, where with a patient look thou watchest the last oozings, hours by hours, the same elongation of vowels or consonantal sounds which you had noticed in the first stanza, where thou watchest the last oozings, hours by hours. What are the last oozings? I'll give a very common example. Sometimes some truant taps in our homes, they keep dropping all these droplets of water, and they are always, in spite of it, you try your best to screw it in such a way, lock it in such a way that there are no oozings, but yet tup, 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 they will keep falling. So the last oozings are being watched by a very exhausted, tired, yet interested worker so that even the last drop is not missed. The four images of agricultural activity. Activity, yes, but also symbolizing a pause in those activities. It is as if these four workers have taken a moment out of their busy schedules just to rest for a while before they start working. So, why does this balance, this pause, become so important? We move to the concluding stanza. We will read this, I'll explain, and then we'll come back to this. This one moment between activity and inactivity, between life and death, as it were, where death has not yet arrived. Winter, darkness, evening, night has not yet arrived. But there is a stillness around. The best is over, or is it? With this in mind, let us come to the concluding stanza. Where are the songs of spring? Aye, where are they? Here is a poet writing possibly the last poem in his lifetime before he is passing into nothingness, before disease takes the final toll upon him. He knows because he has been training as an apothecary. He understands what are the symptoms, what are those subtle hints which death keeps giving that the end is near. He has seen his brother die before him. He has seen how torturous or death like life can also be when Fanny had left him, when his parents had left him, when his brother and sister George and Georgiana Keats had left for America. So here is a poet who is, as it were, clinging to life, but not with any regret. Where are the songs of spring? Aye, where are they? Think not of them. Thou hast thy music too. We had been looking at that passage which he had written to his friend. I read out Chaste weather, Diane skies, where he had said that I don't like the chilliness of spring. For me, even the stubble plains look beautiful. So here is a poet who is asking the season, where are the joys of spring? Think not of them. Don't be sad because you don't have those beauties, those positivities which we generally associate with spring. In India, we call spring Rituraj, the best of all seasons. We have all our colorful festivals and rituals during spring. Holi, Dol Jatra, even Valentine's Day for that. Right? Chaucer had composed Canterbury Tales, almost welcoming spring. And spring is hailed everywhere, except here where the poet is pointing out the beauty even in decline, even in decay. Think not of them, thou hast thy music too. While barred clouds bloom the soft dying day. As I said, death is one of the most predominant images in Keats's poems. He imagines even the day is dying softly. And look at the clouds, they are barred clouds, not blue or white clouds. Even the clouds are barred. What are bars? We have seen bars on windows or bars in the prisons. Here the clouds are barred. Barred by what? Clouds, barred and clouds. Where do we talk about clouds as barred? Where there are streaks of darkness, of dark clouds across bright clouds. Because it is the day is passing away, evening is setting in. So you have all these dark streaks across the clouds. And touch the stubble plains with rosy hue. Even stubble plains are made to look so beautiful. It is okay to find, all these wavy fields full of green harvest, even daffodils, even mustard fields, as in Dilwale Dulhania. The poster, think about the iconic poster and how many times the camera zooms on them. Now, think of a field where those harvests have been cut. It has become a stubble field, but Keats is imagining a rosy hue even on those stubble plains. So the lingering beauty of the last sun rays, while it will disappear totally and night will set in, is as if being, it's paused upon. A man who knows death is very near is still lingering on those rosy hues. Then, in a wailful choir. So for the first image, you are looking up to the sky, the barred clouds. Then immediately, as if an unseen camera is being wielded by the poet makes you look at the barred clouds and then to the stubble plains. The first image is visual. Next comes an audio image. Then, in a wailful choir, the small gnats mourn among the river sallows. Small gnats, nothing very musical also. The mourning of gnats, mourning, again a word which reminds you of something sad about to happen. The gnats are mourning, monotonous. The gnats don't know that here is a poet who is composing a poem somewhere. They are like constantly emitting one particular sound, which is as if by the breeze borne aloft or sinking, and again an image of death, as the light wind lives or dies. Does a wind die? When can we say that a wind is living or dead? A wind is living when it blows and you can feel it on your skin, on your face, on your hair. And when certain sounds are being brought to you, certain smells too. And then it dies. You don't get that fragrance, you don't get that sound any longer. So that as if is the passing away of the wind. So even a wind can live or die. Daylight can live or die. Sounds, noises, each and everything has to undergo this cycle of life and death. And full grown lambs loud bleat from hilly board. Not just lambs, full grown. Full grown lambs should be technically sheep, but not yet sheep. Just like you, from your first semester, not schoolgirls, yet not even college goers. Somewhere waiting for that promotion to be, legit college goers. But yet, even today, you go home and you possibly touch your school uniform, old uniform, waiting to be discarded. You think about your college friends with a lot of nostalgia. Your school friends with a lot of nostalgia. Even today, if you are walking past or driving past your school, you look back not with anger but with a lot of happiness. And the attachment with this institution has started but has not yet matured. So, this is what fully grown lambs are, who are not yet adults completely, but they are bleating happily from the hilly board where some shepherd had brought them for grazing, and now they are going back. Hedge crickets sing, and now with treble soft. See, a lot of musical words are being used. Sing, treble, loud, whistle. The red breast whistles from a garden croft. It is as if a symphony of nature, a natural symphony is there. So, what is the reason to mourn that there is no autumn song? That is, there is no music as spring can claim as its own? And gathering swallows twitter in the skies, an image that will stay with you for a long, long time. Dusk is descending. The swallows know that it is time to go home, and possibly since winter is also near, they will also have to start on their long voyage to some warm lands. Yet they keep assembling in the sky just before they embark on their next journey. Here is a poem that makes you sit up and take note of pause in life. Every moment has to be enjoyed as it were. In the first stanza, we have noted how every kernel, every fruit was being ripened to the core. What happens after the ripeness, the process of ripeness spills over? Where is that point where you can say that a fruit has reached the finest point of ripeness? Your mother is after you, এই আমটা কিন্তু আজকে তুমি খেয়ে নেবে, হ্যাঁ ঠিক আছে খেয়ে নাও, না এটা কিন্তু খুব মিষ্টি খেয়ে নেবে, হ্যাঁ খেয়ে নেবে, and you tarry, you tend to delay, কে এখন আম খাবে, and the next morning you have that, and you find that that sweetness which possibly would have been there the evening before has become oversweetened, and the process of decay has already stepped in. That fine point between ripeness, full fruition, full activity, and decay is the point which Keats is trying to point our attention towards here. I will talk about the sensuousness of Keats for a little while because of what the riot of senses which we have been through. Did you notice how Keats took all of us on a journey where almost all of our senses were being used? The sensation of touch by the mossed cottage trees, the sensation of sight, the sensation of smell, the strong fragrance of poppies, the sensation of taste over brimming, clammy cells, of sound in the last stanza. All our senses are engaged, and the record of taste and smell crown every line of his poetry, as G.K. Chesterton has said. You will also note the use of number of similes, metaphors, number of figures of speech, personification, synesthesia, alliteration, enjambment. Enjambment is when the lines don't stop, they move over, run on. It doesn't stop. Because when you are very passionate about something, can you logically stop somewhere? We can never do that. We always tend to overdo in our excitement. Synesthesia is visual feast in every stanza, and Keats ensures his readers see, feel, smell, and hear. Synesthesia is a condition that happens when a sense, such as sight, triggers another sense like smell or touch simultaneously. And in Ode to a Nightingale, there is one of my favorite lines: beaded bubbles winking at the brim, and purple stained mouth. All of us here in this room have possibly had this experience of when you have taken a glass and have poured a lot of cold drink for yourself, obviously. অন্যদের দিলে তো কম। আমি নিজে খেলে একেবারে গ্লাস ভর্তি। And the bubbles, when you take the glass, they kind of keep bursting on your mouth because they are there, like they wink at you. You know what winking is? I don't need to explain that. Look at the wonderful visual image of those bubbles, the beaded bubbles. Each bubble is like a bead, and you have all, at many points of your life, watched how color had an impact on those bubbles, those air bubbles. Here Keats is talking about a glass of Provençal wine, red wine of the best quality, which is deep red, almost purple, and which after you taste leaves an imprint on your lips, almost like milk did when we were young, or even nowadays when we have those orange drinks, Mirinda or something, even though the tongue goes orange. Remember? So this is what he means by sinus, what is meant by synesthesia. You can see, feel, as if you can touch those things. The composite sensation gives a totally different interpretation of an image. What do the critics think about this poem? Autumn represents birth, growth, and death. In it, it encompasses a fulfilling union between the ideal and real. This poem is about acceptance. It is about stoicism. We should learn to accept the goodness and also be ready to let go, though parting is quite painful. This poem is also about renewal and continuation. And according to Helen Wendler, autumn may be seen as an allegory of artistic creation. As the farmer processes the fruits of the soil into what sustains the human body, so the artist processes the experience of life into a symbolic structure that may sustain the human spirit. Do you know why, of all poems of Keats, this poem has been included in your syllabus? Possibly because of this reason. When a certain text is included in your syllabus, ask yourself this question: what message there might be in this particular text that it has been incorporated into our curriculum, into our syllabus? This is one such poem which will be there for you the rest of your lives. Harold Bloom has argued that if, as Keats postulate, death in itself is final, here it comes with a lightness. Keats knew that death was near. But death is not something heavy, it is not a burden, but it is a lightness, a softness, an acceptance of process beyond the possibility of grief. The progress of growth is no longer necessary. Maturation is complete, and life and death are in harmony. If life can be accepted, death also has to be accepted. And I conclude with one of my favorite quotes from William Shakespeare: men must endure their going hence, even as they are coming hither. Ripeness is all. And we have been talking about ripeness all through this poem as well. Thank you very much for your patient hearing. If you have any questions, comments, observations, I would be very happy. Did I take a lot of time? feel like talking for hours.
Do you have any questions?
Many of them are quite sleepy. Hungry also, I guess.
Thank you, Dr. Das. The poet that you are, you actually, at least you took me on a journey which involved all my senses. And again, after many, many years, I negated my identity as a teacher and I became a student. Listening, I was enthralled.
I'm sure you will be doing a better job when
No,
you take this call.
You have done a lot for me. I think it's made my task easier. And girls, do you have any questions to ask, ma'am? Don't be shy.
I think they need some time to read
Yes,
the
to
poems.
process.
Process what they have to say.
And once again, it was really, really engrossing, your lecture. And I would request my colleague, Mr. Ritik Balu, to deliver the vote of thanks.
So are you sure you have no comments or observations? No?
They will
Right, this
question
is
me.
all.
They will question me when I go up for the class.
Thank you, Shishmita. Today we've been privileged to delve into the sensuous realm of John Keats' poetry, thanks to Dr. Rumpa. Thank you, ma'am. On behalf of our respected principal, the esteemed head of the Department of English, and the dedicated students and faculty of the English Department, I extend my deepest gratitude to Dr. Das. Thank you very much. Her observations and analysis of Keats and one of his most loved poems provided us with a really sensuous and fresh perspective, enriching our understanding of probably not just Keats' poetry but also romantic poetry more generally. I believe I speak for everyone here when I say that Dr. Das's profound knowledge paired with her eloquent delivery has been truly enlightening. We wholeheartedly thank Dr. Das for sharing her insights and expertise with us and our students. Ma'am, your lecture today was scintillating, at least for me, and we are truly grateful. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So the formalities are now over. The seminar is over. এবারে বলো বুঝেছো কিছু?
Yes.
Yes, please.